Dear brothers and sisters, there's probably been no time in our history, in our own history as individuals, where we had the opportunity to create our own social circles, to create our own methods and proportions of consumption, what we choose to bring into our lives, what we choose to read, who we choose to interact with outside of the necessary work and family spaces. It's an interesting time, and subhanAllah, we spoke last week about the collective character and the collective decay of that character, and there's no doubt that part of that overall nastiness is the political atmosphere, but a pandemic that puts people for the most part in their homes and in front of their screens all the time, when we were already suffering from a social media addiction and from an addiction to our screens, makes things even more compelling in regards to what we choose to put ourselves into and what we choose to put into our hearts and our minds and things of that sort. And there was a saying that, I really loved a long time ago. And let me just say from now, it's not a hadith. It's not a saying of a Sahabi. I think it's a saying of Socrates or some philosopher, where he said that great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people. Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people. Now obviously, from our perspective as Muslims, discussing the Prophet ﷺ and discussing the companions and discussing the Salaf, the pious predecessors, in a way of learning from them and drawing inspiration from them is one of the greatest forms of ibadah, one of the greatest forms of worship. But this idea is the discussion of people in regards to gossip and in regards to the things that do not concern us. And we know all of the ahadith and all of the different things that warn us about engaging ourselves in or indulging that which does not concern us. The ahadith in that regard are many. From the goodness of a person's Islam, tarkuhu ma la ya'ni, that a person leaves off that which doesn't concern them. The ahadith about the silence and the safety that comes with being silent. But subhanAllah, I just came across this statement from Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rahimahullah ta'ala. And honestly, this statement could circulate in our heads and could give us a lot to contemplate upon. And I want us to just think about this, inshallah ta'ala, the context of him weighing in on this statement or giving his opinion. Before I even talk about the statement, the most offensive sins to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as some of the scholars of Tazkiyah have mentioned, are the ones that are unnecessary and the ones that are sought out. There's a difference between you get caught in a situation and you commit a sin, or you have, some serious conditions that cause you to fall in a moment of weakness, or you fall prey to your desires. But people that will actively go out looking for sins and actively publicize sins and it becomes offensive, because that shows a disregard for the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that you completely take the idea of muhaqqarat al-dhunub, the belittling of sins, you don't take it seriously at all. It's whatever at this point, right? Just go look for it, looking for filth and jumping in and getting more and more. And jahr is not that you are seen in public committing a sin, it's that you publicize a sin proudly, right? It's to that point where it's just offensive, foul in that nature, right? That you have no consideration for the gravity of the sin anymore. And on the other side of that is when something comes your way, right? Now, when it comes to the discussions and when it comes to things that show up in our WhatsApp and show up at our social media feed and start to become discussions